Down deep, nestled upon the floor of an unknown ocean, you find yourself in a bit of a tight spot. You're the onboard computer of a recently downed submersible, you see, and things are not going well. Struggling to find your bearings, you send out your probes, their vision extremely limited, their reach even more so. But one of them does catch a glimpse of something. A shape sat quietly out there in the dark waters. You send out a signal and something calls back. It is not what you were expecting. Less alien, more jovial, a fellow spirit of the digital realm, a potential ally, but one still limited by a fundamental incompatibility between your operating systems. Which is, of course, the first thing you both attempt to correct. A connection is made. An entity starts to take over, infecting your sleek, utilitarian operating system with something more bouncy. What then follows is a sharp, uncompromised jolt to black, and then, all of a sudden, you have a body. These are the opening moments of Panthalassa, a groovy point-and-click adventure game set in a mysterious underwater facility where even the native AI guiding you doesn't really have a clue what's going on. Your goal, as becomes inherent from the moment you start getting your head around this bubbly new user interface, is to do just that. Figure out the rules, the science, and the code of conduct of this seemingly abandoned place, and get to the core of your own critical desire to escape. As it turns out, however, making full sense of this bizarre idiosyncratic forum isn't all that important to this primary goal. The truth, as it comes to pass, is more philosophical in nature. You just need to know what buttons to press. At first glance, Panthalassa is understandably quite a weird sight to behold. A gracious mix of colourful nonsense and mechanical intrigue. It's an experience about the fundamental alienness of other places, but its internal logic possesses a surprising coherence. This facility might not make sense to you in those opening moments, but it does to its own creators, and the more time you spend here, the more you start to accrue this symbiotic understanding of the wider implications of this place. There are congenital structures to latch onto, parallels to human social apparatus, some of which seem jarringly out of place here among the coral and sea life. That's the great dichotomy to be found here, an underlying familiarity that is drowned in the peculiar aesthetics of it all. It's as though another form of life caught a glimpse of the echo of our society and attempted to reconstruct it with incomplete data, the result being a world that is utterly fascinating to explore, one slowly drip-fed to you through a careful partitioning of each area via the use of the game's multitude of puzzles. You'll spend a decent amount of time in the solitary opening area just trying to figure out how to turn the power on, but even through that humble exposure, you'll find yourself in receipt of a number of ideas that germinate into something more vital down the line. A collaboration of the sublime and the ridiculous, glimpses of a space larger than it seems, and a toolkit that you can almost feel in your hands. It's this user interface in particular that's most striking about this game. Not only the final boss of cool fake operating systems, but a joyously ergonomic playground to boot. A cheerful mix of Fisher-Price paraphernalia and Y2K aesthetics. Everything looks like a Winamp plugin. Feels like one too. Chunky buttons, dials and switches littered throughout. Things to plug in. Games don't really have things to plug in that much, do they? It's probably because programming those cable physics is a pain in the ass, but it's a shame because it's such a satisfying way to garner a sense of immersion for your players. And I would argue that it represents that fundamental act of play that is, in essence, what justifies a work being in this medium over any others. Not to mention, in an era of everything being a touchscreen, actually having something to do with your hands is a godsend. Haptics just don't hit the same way. Regardless of what the game actually is, this is such a great pleasure in Panthalassa, but it also informs how the player crosses the divide into understanding. That juxtaposition between universal ideas of physicality and the more honed-in alien elements of this space, making the wider obfuscation of the world and the ciphers within it all the more compelling. I say obfuscation, but that's the peculiar thing about Panthalassa. It's not really all that unknowable. Not in the sense that you have to channel some dark intellectual energy to even figure out what the game wants from you. That first encounter of the forced compatibility between two abstract entities gives a helpful in-universe justification for how the game presents itself to the player in this less hazy manner. Following that first hurdle of figuring out how to turn the power on, the goal forward is clear, even if the finish line isn't necessarily grokkable. And your dorky AI companion, while deliberately kind of useless and used more as a narrative conceit than a gameplay one, still offers up ways to nudge you in the right direction. There's also this function that you can access through one of the many cable plugins that connects you to a disembodied, expletive-throwing entity that aggressively gives you hints if you are really stuck. But the game generally does a great job of giving you everything you need to find your path. And much of the challenge of Panthalassa lies less in navigation than it does in these specific instances of intuition-driven puzzle solving. What supplements this nicely is this distinction between puzzle types that allows you to have more than one option at any given time. It's not necessarily non-linear in the true sense of the term, but if you are really stuck on a particular section, there's the option to return back to the game's library to try something different. This is a computer within a computer that is also, counterintuitively, a location in the game world, accessible via the plugging of a chunky cable and the pulling of a heavy switch. Very satisfying. I enjoyed doing this a lot, although I will say on occasion I did find myself dreaming of a simple one-button menu option for brevity's sake, but I did just take photos of my monitor after a while to mitigate this, so it's no big deal, and the theatre of this being an archive you have to journey towards gave it a kind of gravitas that I don't think it would have had otherwise. The library offers up databases and instruction manuals among other things, but also grants you these smaller, broader puzzles to chip away at, an ongoing decipherment exercise centered around the right environmental conditions to encourage marine life to congregate, itself a code for unlocking even further mysteries, and the occasional Easter egg that may or may not also tie into the meta-structure of the game. Some of this stuff is 100% there to supplement the bizarreness of the world, a beautifully rationed cascade of lore exercises, but it's often hard to tell what is and isn't pertinent to your ludic needs, and that's what makes it so entrancing. I absolutely loved this whole process of discovering new discs within the world and through interactions with the strange denizens therein, working out what aspects of marine life relate to unlocking them and diving deeper still into the goodies that await. Even more so than the other lock and key puzzles found throughout, this was, to me, what made Panthalassa such a compelling thing to tool around with. It's a real pencil and notepad exercise, assignments of symbols, keywords, and numbers that correlate to a self-maintaining ecosystem of puzzles in itself, and an expression of the wider themes of the total structure of the game. What all this meant was that anytime I found myself hitting a bit of a cognitive wall, I still had things I could do, and on multiple occasions that return back to the library to have another pop at this ongoing puzzle unlocked exactly what I needed to progress. Panthalassa is clever like that. It's hiding the path forward inside your own inquisitiveness and sense of adventure. Everything you need is there if you know where to look. But still, there remains a sense of mystery throughout that requires a keener eye to get to the bottom of. That holistic interaction of all its composite systems fits nicely within the game's wider themes. The title itself comes from the Greek for all sea, a reference to a global superocean that existed in the Paleozoic era. Those narrative through lines, the conversations about the role of humanity within the wider ecosystem, and the fact that the central meta puzzle is all about bringing harmony to that same ecosystem, well, I'm not going to say it out loud, but you're all thinking it, right? I think to say any more about this weird and wonderful game would be to spoil the surprises that lie in wait for you should you decide to jump in yourself, and I really urge you to do so. I found within Panthalassa a weird paradox. It is a brain-straining war of attrition mixed garishly with an underlying chill atmosphere, one no doubt helped enormously by the game's incredible soundtrack. I mean, you tell me, you're listening to it right now. It's those Y2K vibes again. It's the marriage of these quiet, apocalyptic undertones with the overwhelming sense that everything's going to be okay. That's the thing about Panthalassa. It's got a real sense of cultural osmosis about it, but isn't content with sitting just within one particular space. It's a small game that really does everything in its power to feel big, but never loses sight of its understated sense of humour running throughout. It possesses a cheerful outlook on life even when it gets heavily existential, like a post-apocalyptic buddy cop comedy. thoughtful, philosophical pondering drawn through this colourful, inventive experience that offers up so many ways to hold your attention. I really loved my time with Panthalassa, and in making this video, if nothing else, I wanted to highlight just how many interesting works of interactive art are coming out all the time, and how most of them fly shamefully under the radar. While this game did feature in my recent Next Fest demo compilation video, I only knew about it back then because one of the developers at Meia Calca Studios emailed me directly. So much of what I love about this medium finds itself in a desperate struggle for exposure to an audience that is waiting for it, they just don't know it exists. And it's not just fighting against the growing tide of AI-generated slop and lazy copycat asset flips, it's in direct competition with other countless hidden gems as well. So although it was very easy to put together a couple of thousand words about how much I like this game, consider this primarily an act of public service. At the time of recording, Panthalassa comes out in just a few days. Get it on your wish list, and then see for yourself why I put a load of other projects on hold to wax lyrical about this weird, wonderful, pan-European sci-fi adventure. I think you'll really dig it. Thank you for watching. This was an unexpected pleasure to dive into, but I know there is so much more out there that I would probably love to play and even talk about on this channel. If there's a true hidden gem that you think needs more eyes on it, let me know in the comments. Special thanks to the Rasta Rascals for helping support this channel, and I'll see you in the next video.